Good evening, everybody. I'm Randy Meyer. I'm the interim superintendent, and coming soon, we'll be returning to the role of deputy superintendent. You probably saw we have a new superintendent named, and so we're looking forward to meeting her and getting her on board. But tonight, we're going to talk about the voter-approved tax rate election, and if you'll take a look at this side of your little flyer, a year ago, our school board formed a subcommittee of 3 trustees, and these 3 trustees had a big question that we needed help answering. The big question is, how do we continue, out of the same bucket of money for our budget, pay staff the rate of pay we'd like to pay, because many of our staff work below the market rate, and continue to address our aging facilities. Everything's getting older. And when you try to do the same out of the same bucket and try to do both, it is tough. And so you get a little here and a little here, and we're losing people because we don't pay enough, we can't recruit people, our buildings are getting older. So they went throughout the community. They had 5 public information meetings like this, a big survey for anybody who wanted to participate, and the overwhelming message was, we'll try to do both, but let's focus on a pay plan first, and then as a community we need to talk about what to do with our facilities. And so they developed a targeted pay increase. So if you'll look all the way over to the right, the target was, let's see if we can increase the hourly rate for our hourly employees by $2 an hour. You know, if you're going to be a teacher's aide in Victoria, the starting pay is just over $11 an hour. When you know, because even at the fast food and the retail stores, the starting pay is above that. And this is for people who are going to be working with our students, helping teachers. And so we've had a difficult time. And maintenance workers and food service workers and custodians. We've had shortages in those areas for quite some time. We also wanted to address teacher pay. Across the state of Texas, Victoria teachers typically are paid about $7,000 below the state average. And what we've recognized here in Victoria over the last several years is every year we lose about 130 teachers. Some retire, some leave the profession, some move out, some just go and do other things. Well, Victoria does not grow up enough teachers to teach our nearly 13,000 students. Not just teachers. They don't grow up enough teacher aides, enough administrators, enough bus drivers. So Victoria needs to look elsewhere to either have people drive into Victoria to fill these positions, or they need to leave their communities from around the state and relocate and move to Victoria. Well, when the Victoria pay is lower than where they're at, it's very difficult to convince them to relocate, leave their homes, leave their families, and come to Victoria, Texas. And so we've had a huge challenge addressing that shortage. And so the pay plan is going to give everybody something, but we're focusing the most of it on teachers with 5 years of experience or more. You know, we're grateful to have our brand new teachers. We've got some who are really giving it a good try, and we're glad to have them in the profession. But it takes several years of teaching to really develop kind of that craft to where I know how to handle my kids, I know how to handle my parents, I know how to teach my curriculum. And a teacher with 5 or more years, they could just come in on day one and they pretty much know what to do. The other challenge we've had is the teachers were growing up. They're getting better and better, they're getting experience, and once they have 2 or 3 years of experience, what do? They leave us to go somewhere else, either to a neighboring district or out. And we know that in Victoria, we have to get our academic success up because we want to attract industry, we want businesses to come here, and they're going to look at the schools. And we don't want them skipping over Victoria and bringing their businesses to the other communities. So the targeted rate for teachers would be a $7,000 pay increase for teachers with 5 years of experience or more, which puts us at the average. So how do we do this? Well, that project is going to cost $11 million to lift up the pay just to the targeted. And there'll still be positions that are under the average for the state. Well, we took in the first column what we call compensation plan version 1, we took $4 million out of the budget and we funded a portion of the target. If you saw in the paper VISD budget cuts, we cut budgets in other departments to put everything we could into pay. Everything we could into pay. We're using some fund balance or savings to offset the maintenance budget. So we cut the maintenance budget by 75%. Put everything into pay because we got to stabilize our workforce, or what good is it to have an aging building if you don't have anybody to work in it? So we squeezed everything out of this budget we can. There's not a penny left. We are as efficient as we can be. Well, the remaining $7 million will fund the rest of it. So in August, the school board set a tax rate to generate this $7 million. Well, the tax rate they set is 9 cents higher than the law allows, and it requires voter approval. That's why we have a voter-approved tax rate election on the ballot for November 5th. If the voters approve this, that $7 million will be funded, and all of these folks will hit the targeted pay increase, and maybe we can start the process of stabilizing the loss of the workforce we have. So if you'll take a look at the other side, let's look at tax rates. The red section at the bottom, you'll see that the tax rate has been decreasing over the last several years. If you've heard about the state talking about compression, the state's pushing down the tax rate and they're making up the difference so that homeowners will see a savings on their tax bill. The tax rate just a few years ago was just under $1.20. It dropped this past year to just under 81 cents. The tax rate has dropped by about 39 cents. The district is asking for 9 of those cents back so that we can fund this. So the current tax rate is the lowest tax rate in decades. If the voters approve the just under 90-cent tax rate, it'll be the second lowest in decades. Now, good news, if you're 65 or older, it costs you $0. Your school taxes are frozen. And one of the things we've learned from this process and going around in the community is we think there are a number of folks who are 65 or older who do not know that, and they did not file their exemption form with the appraisal district. They need to go file it, let those taxes get frozen. Why voluntarily pay more than you need to? But for those who are under 65, what does 9 cents cost? If you look at the blue section, you'll see that the average home price now in Victoria is $235,000. Did you ever think you'd see the day in Victoria where the average home is $235,000?
Not really.
So when we used to be able to tell people, come to Victoria. Yeah, you're not going to make as much, but you can get a home at a better price. Your milk is cheaper, your eggs are cheaper, you can buy a car at a lower price, and that's not the truth anymore. In fact, our home values are starting to look like areas in the Houston and San Antonio area, and so the cost of living in Victoria isn't as low as it used to be. So for an average home price, if you look all the way to the right, it's $10.13 a month is what 9 cents cost, or $121.50 on a $235,000 house. Well, if somebody had a $500,000 home, that would be $30 a month or $360 a year. Think about what you can buy for $30. I don't know if you can get 2 pizzas nowadays for $30, but for $30 a month, we can lift up the pay for a lot of our people to help educate our 13,000 kids. We have in the middle here a QR code. It's a square with the squiggly lines. You can take your phone, take a picture of that. It'll take you to the website. We have more information about this. We have videos, so if you're trying to explain it to somebody, just watch the video. We even have a video that explains the ballot. The ballot's kind of confusing. It talks about ratifying and this and that, and some people may not even know what those words mean. So the video, we kind of break down the ballot to help people understand what that is. Early voting starts today. It'll run through November 1st at the Patty Dodson Center. I heard there was a huge turnout today. And then the election is November 5th. If you hear about this, it's called the Voter Approved Tax Rate Election. It's also called a VATRE. Some people also call it a VATRE. Some people call it a VATRE. So I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago, and someone said, I finally understand the voter-approved tax rate election. What's this VATRE thing I hear people talking about? And so it is all the same thing, and it's basically the community approving the tax rate that the board set. There you go. Do you have any questions or any thoughts?
No, not now. That kind of cleared stuff up for me, because you're right, as it's listed on the sample ballot, I thought the issue was about raising more money for maintenance.
Because it's called the M&O.
Yeah.
It's called the maintenance and operation,
Yeah, and
which
that's
is
what
what
they
the general fund.
Yeah.
Yes. We're not allowed to legally change that language on the ballot to explain that the maintenance and operation fund is where we pay all of our people out of that bucket. It's kind of confusing.
Okay.
But that is the legislative approved language, and we were not allowed to deviate from it. But it looks like you're raising money to fix your buildings when this is going into pay. You know.
Yeah, that's what he asked me, well, what is this about?
That's why I'm glad you're here.
I guess it's
That's why
more
we're
than
having
just
these.
the new roofs
That's
and-
why we're having these to
yeah.
try, because this is not a bond where you finance your maintenance facilities. This is for pay.
So, the maintenance, repair, upkeep, or whatever.
We're gonna need that.
Budget is still short.
It is,
Will
and
be.
we're going to need, as a community, to talk about that next.
Okay.
What is this community going to want to do? You know, we've put some things in place over the last several years that have been quite popular. You know, if you think about your own home, you have things that have a lifespan. You have your air conditioner system, and there are times where you're going to spend the money to get it repaired, but at some point, it's cheaper to just buy a new one than to keep putting money in. Well, imagine having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of air conditioning units. In 1997, the community passed a big bond, and they put roofs on a lot of the schools, and they have a 20-year lifespan, and they put air conditioning systems all over. Great. Well, those have a lifespan of 15 or 20 years. That was 27 years ago. Those things are all kind of wearing out at the same time. And now we have millions and millions and millions of outdated repairs that are needed, and it's just too big. So maybe we need to, let's fix some this year, in a couple of years, let's fix some more and do some more and do some more, and spread it out over time so that they all don't come due at the same time. We're doing that with buses. We have a fleet of buses of 80 buses, and over half of them, sorry, Jacob. We have 80 buses. Well, instead of trying to borrow the money to replace 20 of them at once, what if we bought 6 a year? Every year you buy 6, so you never have more than that. And in the last 3 or 4 years, we've replaced about 20% of the buses without a giant sticker shock. So when we come back after this, the next thing maybe we go out for smaller bonds every 5 years, and as they get paid off, you add another and you add another, and it kind of stabilizes the tax rate. And instead of asking for 150 million, which it would be very difficult, maybe we ask for 25 or so every 5 years, and over time we can get back out of this, and then we can maintain and predict. You know, the new schools we built 15 years ago, the 2 high schools, 2 elementaries, fine arts, aquatic center, 15 years ago, they're not so new. So those 15-year AC units, those 20-year roofs, they're coming due in the next 5 years. That alone is going to be several $1 million to replace. So it's a big conversation. Yeah. We take cash, check, card, whatever you would like. But we're going to need to restructure how we do that for the long haul. But until then, we keep plugging away and patching, and sometimes we just let it leak.
Sometimes you have to let it leak so that those who voted against the last one hear from their children about it leaking on their desk.
Well, and one of the things we want to do here in Victoria, you know, we're this close to greatness. We've had people who, their kids have grown and left, and they would like for them to come back home. They've got children now, grandchildren, come back home. And some people haven't wanted to. They're worried about the schools and they don't want to put their kids back in Victoria. We want to change that. We want this to be one of the best school systems in Texas. And this is where you do want to come home, because what we're hearing is people who left, they hate the traffic in the other communities. It's not the same. You come back home, and we want the jobs for them, we want the industry, we want the best schools. So trying to turn that ship to make that happen is going to be a joint community effort. Everybody's going to have to want it. And we can do it. Does anybody else have any questions?
You got well informed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What we hope for, as the superintendent here, I cannot advocate for this. I can't say you should or should not, but what we can do is provide information. But folks like you can tell people your opinion. There's always the concern that there are people going to go and they're going to see the ballot and not understand it, and later they'll say, if I understood it, I would have. And so getting word of mouth out is we're asking folks like you. You heard it. You saw there aren't very many people here, but if you can tell 10 or 20 people, just so they at least know and have that information, and we'll go from there. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Jacob, for recording this, and thank you for your time tonight.